body shot.
In celebration of No Time to Die finally releasing, I thought I'd do a video surrounding the cinematography of my personal favourite Bond film. It also happens to be the one shot by one of the best cinematographers of all time. It's not a surprise that one of the best looking Bond films was shot by Roger Deakins. His style is so distinct yet not there at all. He adapts to any project he takes on, but without a defined look. However, his lighting is so recognisable, whether it's his iconic cove lighting or simply covering a ceiling in 650s. I've chosen Skyfall not only because it's my favourite Bond film, as well as being one that was shot by Deakins, but because its cinematography was such a huge mark in the franchise. It's so different to the previous films and set a standard for the future ones. In today's video, I'll be looking at what makes Skyfall's cinematography so distinct, Deakins' use of lighting and movement, as well as what equipment he used to achieve the look. To cover the technical stuff first, Deakins obviously opted to use Arri's cameras, more specifically the Alexa M, Plus and Studio, paired with Zeiss's Master Primes and Ingenue's Optimos. However, for the aerial shots he used the Red Epic and kept with the Master Primes. The cameras were the best Arri had to offer at the time, so there isn't much to talk about there. The lenses, however, are some of his favourites. He had used them on his previous 5 films, and whilst there were few worries about the IMAX release of the film, there ended up being no need for concern.
Well, and I use the Master Primes because I think they're the sort of cleanest lenses. I always shoot on prime lenses. I rarely shoot on a zoom. I kind of hate zooms. Unless you're actually using it as a zoom, you know, if you're using it, fine, but I hate using a zoom as a, variable focus lens because I don't like the flare, I don't like the amount of light it takes in. I don't like the fact it's so far from the lens, it makes the camera that big instead of that big. I like things to be as small and as compact as possible. So the Master Primes have, I say they're the fastest, cleanest lenses that I've come across. So.
The Master Primes have virtually zero distortion and are incredible in low light. They also allow you to shoot at extremely high resolution due to their unmatched image quality, and for these reasons he uses them in almost every one of his projects. Optimos, on the other hand, are a great option for zoom lenses. They offer the same high quality visuals and resolution with incredible sharpness and have great full frame capabilities. When talking about what camera to choose, Deakins said, "We were originally going to shoot a lot of the movie on location in China, and there was quite a lot of night work with intense colours and a low level of light available. I wasn't really thinking of shooting digitally originally, but in conversation with Sam and thinking about what we wanted to achieve, I suggest we might consider shooting with the Alexa." So what is it that makes this cinematography so distinct from all of the other Bond films? Well, to start, Deakins and Mendes brought a whole new perspective to how Bond films could be shot. They brought in intricate lighting designs, meaningful movement, and an expansive range of angles. I watched Quantum of Solace yesterday, which, as I'm sure you know, was the Bond before Skyfall, yet the cinematography, even though they were released only 4 years apart, was so unbelievably different. Everything from the use of movement to even the colour grade couldn't have been more contrasting. Yet you still know that Skyfall is a Bond, even though Mendes wanted it to be seen as a standalone film, which it absolutely can be. Let's look at this scene for example. It's something that we've never seen in a Bond film before, and yet it's something that makes this film so recognisable. And also, something that I didn't realise until I was researching for this video is that all of this was done on a soundstage with the building superimposed in post. I'll get onto the lighting and movements later, but to talk more about the angles used, we need to start by looking at the end. The masters here have dwarf Bond. He has gotten himself into a vulnerable position, and whilst we can tell that through the story, it's also shown through the cinematography. When talking about how they came up with the look for the film, Deakins stated, "It always starts from the script, the discussions you have with the director, and you build from there. It's a film with many contrasts, the ominous Victorian underground bunker and modern day Shanghai, forceful Bond and pensive Bond, so we wanted many different stylistic looks, perhaps not always in the way we shot it, but definitely in the colour palette." Overall, Deakins has yet again given us one of the most beautifully shot films of the past decade, and in doing so, he created a whole new base for future Bond films to go off, and he did so without disrupting what was already there.
007, what took you so long?
Oh, I got into some deep water.
We have to start this segment off by talking about the opening shot. Bond simply walks into focus, into a light that shines only on his eyes. The idea to have him walk into focus rather than to rack was actually just made up on the day, and it was one of those things that just came to Deakins on the spot. I'll quickly go back to this scene. Silver and Bond are pretty much in silhouette. This technique not only creates mystery but also creates a lot of suspense. From the mannerisms of both, we clearly know who is who, but the extremely dark shadows and contrasting orange behind both create a sense of secrecy. When explaining how he would light a scene, Deakins recalled, "I use bounce light on many occasions and bounced off of all sorts of materials like polystyrene or loose calico to light a face. In a scene at the end of the film, inside a chapel illuminated by a distant exterior firelight, I used 4 12x12 Roscoe gold stipple reflectors with perhaps 40 2K open-faced blondes on flicker generators to create the effect." To move on to the movement, with most Bond films it's simply used because it looks good, and granted moving the camera almost always makes a shot look better, in Skyfall they would only move if the action was doing so. Because what's the point of moving the camera if it adds nothing to the story? All it does at that point is distract the audience. To go back to another Deakins quote, he said this regarding camera movement. "The way I see things come from my experience in documentaries. I like the camera to be invisible. If the audience becomes aware of the camera, it takes them out of the movie and you have failed in some way." To put it simply, Roger Deakins is a master at lighting. It would be impossible to explain why he does even a few of his techniques in a video like this, but what we do know is that moving the camera with purpose makes us as an audience feel more engaged in the film, even if we don't know it.
Get on the train.
Ultimately, Skyfall is simply the best looking Bond yet, in my personal opinion. It set a standard for the future films and also just made people appreciate the cinematography. Deakins didn't just change how they would typically light a Bond film or how they would utilise movement. He created a whole new look that perfectly encapsulated the feel of an old Bond with just a hint of modernism. Now the $64,000 question is, what will they do to change it next? I realise that this video is a few days late, but I'd rather it be perfect, especially for one regarding Skyfall and Deakins, because on Wednesday it just felt pretty average. I hope you enjoyed this video looking at how Roger Deakins shot Skyfall. If you have a film or TV show that you would like to see me analyse, then leave a comment down below. If you found it informative, then a like is appreciated, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.